Hello, this is take two. For those of you who've hung around, yeah, interesting, my sound. So I did my whole video without you being able to hear a thing. But anyway, video is all about resentment, and I'm assuming you can hear me. It's hard to know if anybody can hear me. If I can't, I've got my phone here, so you can let me know. But today's video is all about what is the build-up of resentment really costing you. So, I'm talking about this because I see this and I hear this with particularly women that I work with in coaching or counseling. They're really tired of carrying the burden of resentment, and they actually want to break free from the chains because it's exhausting. And what I see and what I hear is that all these feelings, they're built up inside. Women, they're overthinking, they're worrying, and they're beginning to lose confidence in themselves and trust in themselves. So is any of this talking to you? If you have resentment inside, it could be. And what also could happen is perhaps you're beginning to emotionally shut down, be emotionally distant. And another big thing that I hear around resentment, if you can imagine this big volcano, and this volcano is inside of you, and it's the resentment, and it builds and builds and builds, and then sometimes this volcano goes blah, because of all of the unsaid things, the things that you haven't spoken about, and it hurts you. So you're in the right place if any of this speaks to you. Having been in business for 15 years, this is a topic that I do know. This is an area that I know really, really well. So if you actually want to unlock the power that is within you, this power that's within yourself, and moving the belief that you have around resentment, then you are in the right place. So in this live video, you are going to learn how to unlock the secrets of your body's most powerful system. The body is incredibly powerful, and when you can tap into that power, you will begin moving that resentment. I just believe me. And also in this video, you are going to discover the path to the inner peace and the balance that is also inside of you. And lastly, in this video, they are essential ingredients to actually nourish your soul. So if you are listening to this live, I'd love you to put into the comments live. And if this is a replay, hashtag replay, and fantastic to have you on board. All right. So how do you unlock the secrets of your body's most powerful system? So the first thing I want to talk about is the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest. So this is a state where you feel peaceful, where you feel calm, where you feel present, where you can be spontaneous. Oh look, I'm seeing some comments there to the side. I can hear you, Helen. Thank you. Thank you, Joy, for hanging in there. I know on the 8 o'clock people couldn't hear me. I was just going for gold. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So the rest and digest. Look, it sounds pretty simple. However, for a lot of people, they aren't in this. So talking more into this, when you're in the rest and digest, the beliefs are that the world is safe, and also your body feels safe. And when you're in this state, you feel safe in your relationship. You're curious, you're open, spontaneous. For women, your libidos. You have a strong libido when you are in this state. And you are spontaneous, and you can fun and play and dance and movement, and it is a great state to be in. But for a lot of women, they aren't in this state. They're in, you would have heard of this expression, the fight, flight, freeze. It's a survival state. It's the sympathetic state of activation where you are in the survival mode. And I know this really well. I've been there a very large part of my life. So in this state, you actually feel unsafe. You can feel on edge. You feel overwhelmed. You can have anxiety. So in this state, in relationships, you don't feel safe, and you can often feel like you can't trust. It's not a great state to be in. You're in survival, and you can get activated quite easily, particularly if you're in a relationship. And often in times you don't feel safe in your own body. And I can really relate to this. I have lived like this for a large part of my life, and also a lot of the women that I work with can feel like they're in this. And also you can often feel like you find it difficult to be able to manage your life. So I think I'm really describing it because I want you to sort of work out, well, where do I sit? What do I feel? And also part of the fight, flight, freeze. The freeze state is where sometimes it can be known as depression, but you can actually feel tired, exhausted, disconnected, uninspired. You don't have passion. You don't know what lights you up. You can often feel quite hopeless, flat, and for a lot of people, when they're in this state, you can avoid relationships totally. And often when you're in this place, the belief that you can have is that relationships are quite pointless. Why bother? And I'm not going to invest my time. So I think I'm painting a picture, aren't I? So I want you to ask yourself, am I in the rest and digest a lot of the time? Or do I really go from either fight, flight, freeze or the rest and digest? So the first question is to ask, where do I sit a lot of the time? And even if you want to put into the comments, where do you sit? And if I just pop on over, I'm going live. Yes, I am. Thank you. All right. So the next part of this video, what I want to talk about is returning to a peaceful baseline. So how do you discover that peaceful baseline? How do you discover your path to inner peace and balance? So, there's so many stresses that you're under. There's the stimuli. It's learning how to actually regulate and to be able to come back down into calm. That is absolutely crucial. It is a skill. You have to educate. You have to practice. You actually have to learn how to do it. Now, the first place to begin is learning how to slow down. It's being able to cultivate awareness. And how do we do that? Well, it's actually learning how to witness yourself. It's how do you witness yourself? By being curious, by being able to slow down, being able to develop awareness where we begin to actually drop into the body and to begin to notice and to have compassion on yourself. It's quite a different way of living. If you think about it, humans, we're often doing. We're not humans being. So it's learning how to do this. And it's also, it's being curious. It's not having the judgment around this. This is a whole new way of being. If you have a look out at the people in your world, you'll probably find that a lot of them are busy doing. They often are in the ups and downs and the roller coasters and the fight and flight, not often in thriving and calm and peaceful. So it's a whole new way of being and learning how to do it. So look, I'd love to hear from you in the live. If you're on the live, put on there live and what you're getting from this. And also hashtag replay and what you are getting from this. So I would like to spend the rest of this live talking about the essential ingredients, because I think I've framed it up enough, haven't I? Framed it up enough that when you have resentment, we often think it's because it's somebody outside of ourselves and what they're doing wrong. The resentment that you have on your partner, they're drinking too much, or they're not making you a priority, or they're not saying what they say they're going to do. So you are feeling not heard, not validated, not seen. So the key with this, fight, flight, freeze, thank you, Joy. The key with resentment, this built up resentment, is being able to unhook, because when we have resentment, it is outside of ourselves. And what I call this the trance of unworthiness, where we get in this trance of resentment because it's someone outside of ourselves. I'd love you to be open and to be curious that what if you could unhook from that resentment outside of yourself and actually bring it back into yourself. And where am I resentful with myself? Where am I betraying myself? Because the cost of resentment, you can't change anybody else. You can't make anybody else change. So let's bring it back to you. And how can I begin nourishing my soul? How can I begin listening to myself and giving myself what I need to be able to give that to myself? Okay, so how do I nourish my soul? Let's begin first with nutrients. What's the food that you put in your body? To nourish your soul, you have to put good food in your body. So what happens when you perhaps put junk food in, or you have a bit of the sugar, or you have the food that you know you're not meant to have, or you comfort eat, you emotionally eat? What's the resentment that you've got going on? How angry and pissed off are you with yourself? So that's the resentment that I'm talking about. And so it's beginning to change that relationship that you have with yourself around the resentment, because this built up resentment, it's not outside of yourself. This resentment is actually within you. The resentment, when you say that you're going to, let's look at exercise. You say that you're going to go to the gym, and I'm going to go 3 times this week. What's the resentment that you have on yourself when you don't go? Are you kind? I want you to put in the comments, whether you're live or replay, what's the resentment that you have, perhaps around food, perhaps around movement and exercise. And let's look at resentment. So say you meditate and you just aren't able to unhook from that monkey mind. What's the resentment that you have on yourself with that? Do you judge yourself? Do you criticize yourself? Do you put yourself down? So it's noticing the resentment that you have on yourself. So all of this, I call this self-betrayal. I call this rejection of myself. So it's beginning to notice when you self-betray and you reject yourself and you put yourself down. So where do I do that in my food? Where do I do that in my exercise? Sleep. What do you do in self-nourishment with sleeping? So with sleep, let's go back to the fight and flight. Sleeping is about surrender, trust, letting go. If you're having difficulty sleeping, I imagine you could be in the fight, flight and freeze. And so it's actually really, really hard to surrender and let go. Do you beat yourself up? Do you have resentment around yourself because you can't sleep? So all I'm doing is bringing awareness. I want you to start changing the language that you have with yourself to begin being curious, or I'm experiencing. Because if you can change your languaging, you will find your resentment will become so much less. And so bringing in stillness, bringing in breathing. In my inner circle, we were talking about that this evening, about breathing and being able to connect in with the body, and to begin practicing how to connect in with your breath. So coming back to this whole topic around the resentment. So I want you to be really honest with yourself. This built up resentment that you have, what is it costing you? You know, this burden of resentment, it's noticing that a lot of this resentment is the resentment that you have on yourself. And so by bringing in stillness and the essential nutrients to nourish your soul. So what can you begin to do to begin nourishing your soul? Do you just start with perhaps 4 cooked homemade meals this week? Or do you start with some movement? I'm going to go for a walk. Or I'm going to practice meditation. Hello, Lynn. Yes, you can comment. Fantastic. I'd love you to comment. So all of this is coming back to the relationship that you have with yourself and the resentment. We think it is outside of ourselves. And, you know, this is one of the biggest things that I see in particularly working with couples in marriage therapy is the resentment that each other have on the other person. And you know what? The inner power and finding that belief within yourself, you unhook from all of that and you just bring it back to yourself. And so having a love affair with yourself, looking at your belief system, you know. So look, what I would love, I run a program, it's called Design Your Best Life. And in pillar 1 of Design Your Best Life, we talk about the self-care. And so if you would like a copy of this worksheet, A Day in the Life of Self-Care, just put a comment in your comments saying that you would like that worksheet. Because this worksheet, I talk and I write into emotional, spiritual, mental and physical. It is really, really important to be able to nourish all those parts of you which help you nourish your soul. It helps you begin to let go of resentment, because the resentment, it's costing you a lot. Vibrationally, you're heavy. Your confidence, you don't speak up. When you have resentment, it's like, oh God, it's not going to be heard anyway. So it's learning how this plays out in you and starting to do something different. So look, I really, really hope this has been helpful. Thank you for those of you who have stayed with me in take 2. Note to self, take off your earphones when you're doing a Facebook Live. It's quite hilarious. But anyway, in the comments, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to nourish your soul? What are you going to do that is going to help you come back into you, into your body, embody you, and begin letting go of any resentment? You know, it's something that we don't even realize that we have resentment. And so it's, for you, you may find it's just a realization, actually I've got a lot of resentment. I'm really pissed off. And so it's beginning to just notice that belief around that. And just start, I always talk, particularly when I'm coaching clients, it's all about slicing it thin. Do one goal, embody it, feel it, do it. Then your confidence, you begin to feel better. It begins to grow your self-esteem. And it's really encouraging. And then you add something else and something else. So, look, I really hope this is helpful. I hope you've got some sort of takeaway from this. So if you want a day in the life of self-care, just put it in the comments and I'll flick it through to you. It's actually a really good resource. It'll give you really good ideas of how you can let go of resentment and bring it all back and start living a life with abundance, success, and love. And be aware of when I feel resentment and try to react differently next time. Love it, Lynn. Thank you. See you on the next live, 8 o'clock next Thursday. See ya. And the comments I'm going to go through and look at all of them. See ya.